Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. When Taylor sees Brooke and Ridge together on the catwalk, she is blown away. On today's episode of Bold and the Beautiful, Taylor informs Brooke that nothing she does would get Ridge back. Eric praises Zend, and people begin looking for Brooke. They ended up imprisoned in a dressing room after Brooke attempted to eject Taylor from the couture fashion show. Models walk the runway as the fashion show proceeds at Forrester. Carter and Steffi are thrilled to be working with Heidi and Spencer backstage. Before the models leave for their walk, Daphne gives them a spray of the new scent. To scent them, the cameras stop taking images. Zend and will discuss how well everything is going backstage. Daphne admits to Carter that she didn't realize this could be so thrilling. Brooke is prepared and will remind Ridge of what he has lost. Donna and Katie inform Eric. Eric is informed by Zend that this is some of his best work to date. He stays with the company to be their eyes and ears, and Eric is grateful for that. I did it for the family, Zend tells him. He advises Eric to be prepared for a party later. Eric asks Elektra and Will to find Brooke after Zend leaves. The showstopper is almost here. Will inquires as to whether Katie has seen Brooke. She is nowhere to be found. They leave to look. Backstage, everyone comments about how wonderful everything is while observing the monitors. Ridge tells Carter that he's happy they're back on the same team. They give each other hugs. Eric responds that he is concerned about the showstopper when Ridge turns to his father. He sends his son out to address the crowd after informing Ridge that it has vanished. Taylor and Brooke are stranded in the changing room without their phones. This only serves to demonstrate that Taylor has no right to be there, according to Brooke. Brooke babbles about how significant today is. Calling to be let out before it's too late, she bangs on the door. According to Taylor, they will become aware of their absence and search for them. She is accused by Brooke of sucking away the room's air. She claims that she wants them to be friends, if not adults. Taylor believes she should start being open about all the hurt she caused Ridge when she accepted the CEO position. Nothing Brooke could do, in Taylor's opinion, would change his opinion of her. Brooke smiles. Taylor claims she never wants to hear it or Doc again, but she never gives up and boasts that he still refers to her as his Logan. The showstopper is about to happen, as Brooke can see on the monitor. On the opposite side of the door are Elektra, Will, and Katie. The yelping of Brooke is audible to them. They'll get her out, Katie promises. Brooke screams as Charlie shows up and searches for his key. Brooke bolts as they open the door at last. Ridge spends a few minutes on the catwalk to divert the attention of the crowd. Before sending Brooke out, Eric checks her over backstage and tells her she's beautiful. Ridge's eyes meet hers as she enters the catwalk, and he remembers seeing her in the outfit in Portofino. As she slowly makes her way down the runway, everyone applauds. Ridge joins her as she gestures for him to do so. As the hands clasp, everyone applauds. Ridge smiles at Brooke while Steffi and Taylor observe from the shadows. On B&B next week. Hope responds, "If you say you want to be with Ridge, then I want that for you too." Brooke is adamant that Ridge is my destiny. Eric tells his son, "Brooke is where you belong." Ridge tells him, "I'm committed to someone else." "Did you come to LA just to do Steffi's dirty work?" Katie queries Daphne. "Are you as interested in me as I am in you?" Carter queries Hope. When Brooke makes her move at the fashion show, Taylor is left feeling rattled. Brooke's absence is recognized, Taylor and Brooke argue while confined in the vault, and Eric's plan is realized today on the Bold and the Beautiful. The fashion display at Forrester Creations continues on the runway while Christine from Genoa City and the influencers watch with grins on their faces. Ivy, Steffi, and Carter exclaim how fantastic everything looks backstage. Brooke is getting into her glam to model the showstopper. Donna and Katie inform Eric. With Brooke, Eric wants Ridge to remember who he is. His goal is for them to reunite. Nothing, according to Donna, will prevent her from taking the stage. Steffi from Bold and Beautiful is barreling toward her most explosive confrontation ever. Because of an unexpected plot turn. Will there be more fashion shows? Brooke tells Taylor, "This is a vault, it locks from the outside," as they enter the sealed room. They're stuck because Taylor forgot her phone. Brooke complains that this only supports her argument. Here at Forrester Creations, you have no business. Steffi reminds the models backstage to make the fragrance a big deal. In a voiceover, Katie informs the audience about the new product. Will and Zen talk about how the audience is feeling it. Will smiles as he turns to face Elektra. In the meantime, the audience members inhale Daphne Rose's fragrance. Brooke yells at Taylor in the locked room, saying that today is crucial for both her and Forrester Creations. Why is she wearing a robe, Taylor wonders. Calling for help to get her out of there, Brooke bangs on the door. Aid. The action continues on the runway, where gowns in shades of green and gold are on exhibit. Zend remarks backstage, "Wonderful show, Grandad, it's some of his and Ridge's best work to date," he believes. He stayed with the company during the coup, which Eric appreciates. Zend acknowledges that it was difficult, but he had a duty. Eric informs him that he is also leaving his mark today. Zend leaves after they decide to celebrate later. Since the showstopper is about to go up, Eric begs Elektra and Will to find Brooke. Steffi asks Ridge if he has seen her mother in the interim. Taylor is baffled by Brooke's extreme panic in the confined room. Is she afraid of being crowded? She isn't happy about it and didn't do this on purpose. For the benefit of the children and grandchildren, Brooke would prefer to get along and be friends with the grown-ups. Taylor believes it's critical that she be forthright about betraying Ridge. Perhaps such a day would never have come again. He is reminded of how she made him feel each time he looks at her. With a knowing smirk, Brooke says, "I don't think there's anything you could do to make Ridge see you differently again." Brooke continues to shout and bang on the door. If Taylor will ever give up on Ridge, she wants to know. According to Brooke, he still refers to her as his Logan. Taylor no longer wants him to refer to her in that way. Brooke notices that the showstopper is almost ready as she watches the live feed. She starts yelling and beating on the door again. Taylor, Brooke B. and B. Will and Elektra inform Katie backstage that Brooke has vanished. They have searched everywhere. They set out to locate her. Carter, Ridge, Steffi, Zend, and Daphne watch the runway in the meantime, and Ridge and Carter express their happiness at their newfound serenity. Ridge tries to embrace his father, but Eric says he's anxious, saying, "I'm worried about the showstopper." Brooke informs Taylor that Ridge needs her in the locked room. Taylor claims he isn't thinking about her because he is busy. When Katie, Elektra, and Will come outside the door and see that Brooke is inside, Brooke yells, "He will be." Taylor locked her in there, the blonde yells. "They'll get her out," Katie says. When Charlie arrives, he yells that this is a safe place. Katie informs him that her sister is imprisoned within the vault. After Charlie finds the key, Katie releases Brooke. Katie and B will be crewed by Elektra. Ridge is instructed by Eric to go speak to the crowd in the backstage area while he locates the showstopper. Eric is waved over by Katie. Ridge thanks everyone for coming as he exits the runway. Brooke gets into the showstopper behind the scenes thanks to Donna, Katie, and Eric. The blonde is told by Eric that she is beautiful. Ridge will experience his usual emotions. She gives him thanks. "Go on," he says to her. Ridge is telling the audience on stage that they might have to end the performance early when Brooke emerges on the runway behind him. He shakes his head and marvels at her in the white gown, remembering Brooke in Portofino. He rushes up to accept Brooke's hand when she extends it. With dismay, Taylor observes the two of them together behind the curtain. Few disputes were as profound as Eric Forrester's silent struggle against his son Ridge's renewed relationship with Taylor Hayes, even if the Forrester estate had long been a battlefield of love, ambition, and treachery. Eric had watched with increasing anxiety since Ridge had hesitantly returned to Taylor's embrace, igniting rumors of a reconciliation that may change the dynamics of the family. Behind the scenes, his actions were harsh, calculating, and purposeful, yet he had never publicly denounced their relationship. For Eric, Taylor was an unstable wild card whose existence jeopardized the meticulously crafted legacy he had spent decades creating. Conversely, Brooke was dependable, well-known, and, above all, someone Eric thought would help keep Ridge rooted in the family business. In order to prevent Ridge and Taylor's love from blossoming anew, Eric launched a subtle but persistent campaign to undermine them under the pretense of paternal care and business strategy. It began with little, seemingly harmless remarks, comments that crept into informal discussions and sowed doubts. "Hasn't Taylor always been passionate?" One night while drinking whiskey, Eric reflected, his eyes keen but his voice light. "Too passionate at times." Recall her previous departure. "When things got hard, did you take the kids and disappear?" Ridge had scowled and dismissed it, but the suggestion persisted. In front of Ridge, Eric later took the time to commend Brooke's steadfast devotion, highlighting how she had supported Forrester Creations through every hardship. He was carefully crafting a story, portraying Taylor as the uncertain danger and Brooke as the unwavering choice, rather than openly criticizing Taylor. No, that would have been too clear. Eric escalated when tact wasn't enough. He started to rearrange Ridge's calendar such that important business trips fell during times when Taylor most needed him. Ridge had to cancel on Taylor because of a last-minute meeting in Milan that coincided with her charity banquet. Taylor was unhappy and began to doubt Ridge's priorities when he was forced to cancel a romantic weekend getaway due to a family emergency. On its own, each incident can be written off as a coincidence, but Taylor wasn't a moron. She started to recognize the pattern. Every time she and Ridge appeared to be getting closer, Eric's presence seemed to loom greater, and Ridge was constantly dragged away when they were supposed to be spending time together. However, Eric's manipulation of a circumstance to cause Ridge to doubt Taylor's reliability was the true masterstroke. He subtly spread untrue information about a possible investor who was interested in Taylor's psychiatric practice. Eric implied that this investor might have hidden agendas. Taylor was taken aback when Ridge, ever the protector, challenged her about it. "What are you discussing?" When Ridge paused, her confusion turned to frustration as she reiterated, "There's no investor." "You don't think I'm real?" Ridge's suspicions, which Eric had skillfully cultivated, bubbled to the surface during the ensuing heated confrontation. Damage had already been done by the time the misunderstanding was resolved. Ridge felt terrible, Taylor felt deceived, and Eric watched with satisfaction from the shadows. However, Eric's most vicious action was still to come. Understanding that Ridge's love for his kids was his biggest vulnerability, Eric started gently influencing Steffi and Thomas by reminding them of the mayhem Taylor had previously caused. One afternoon, he sighed as though he was worried, and said to Steffi, "Your mother has a way of shaking things up. I just worry that history might happen again." Steffi, who was very protective of her father, started to doubt Taylor's motives, which caused friction at family get-togethers. Ever keen to win Eric over, Thomas mirrored the notion, casually remarking that Ridge had been happier with Brooke. As the family's separation deepened, Ridge found himself pulled in opposing directions by his children and the woman he loved. Taylor, on the other hand, was battling an unseen foe rather than merely defending her relationship. One evening, during an especially difficult family dinner, she confronted Ridge. She stated plainly, "Your father doesn't want us together. And maybe we don't stand a chance if you can't see that." Ridge, tired and furious, retorted, "Don't make this about him." In reality, though, it had always been about Eric. "This is about us." His influence shaped every doubt and disagreement, leaving his fingerprints all over their battles. Eric's last act of sabotage, setting up a situation that gave the impression that Taylor was sabotaging Forrester Creations, was the tipping point. Enough evidence, falsified emails, altered documents, to cause Ridge to doubt her devotion. Taylor discovered the game had been rigged from the beginning when Ridge confronted her, his voice icy with treachery. "Are you truly going to accept this?" Her heart was breaking as she whispered. Ridge's quiet was sufficient. Eric's idea ultimately succeeded, for a while. The distance between Ridge and Taylor was too great to bridge. One thing, however, Eric had not anticipated, the tenacity of love. The consequences were disastrous when the truth about his tactics was eventually revealed. Ridge became enraged upon discovering the extent of his father's lies. His voice quivered with anger as he claimed, "You tore us apart." Cornered, Eric could only make feeble excuses about what was best for the family, but the harm was already done. Although the Forrester father had prevailed in the conflict, he had maybe destroyed his son's trust in the process. Although Taylor left with a smile on her face, the wounds from Eric's sabotage were still visible. The message was obvious: love was never simply love in the world of the Forresters. It was a pawn in an endless struggle for dominance, devotion, and power. And master player Eric had shown how far he would go to maintain control of the board. Brooke Logan and Taylor Hayes, two of the company's most powerful women, were noticeably missing from this year's Forrester Creations fashion show, which was always a spectacle of glitz, drama, and intense emotion. They were confined to a private office because of a last-minute security lockdown, so they had to watch the event on a muted monitor while the rest of the world went on without them. The two women who had fought for control of Ridge, the firm, and their positions in the Forrester family for decades were now stuck together, helpless while the performance continued without them. It was almost poetic. Initially, there was a great deal of resentment in their silence as neither of them was prepared to admit how ridiculous their circumstances were, but as the minutes passed without the doors opening, the tension between them grew intolerable. Ever the pragmatic, Brooke finally let out a sigh and threw her clutch onto the desk in an unusually irate manner. She said, of all the people to be stuck with, her voice brimming with the old bitterness that had characterized their long-standing antagonism. Taylor arched an eyebrow but declined to take the bait, at least not right away, as she leaned against the far wall with her arms folded. I could say the same, she said calmly, her eyes darting to the computer where their daughter Steffi predominated the runway with ease. Instead of being a source of pride, the picture served as a sobering reminder that they were losing out on a crucial moment because of uncontrollable circumstances. Neither of them missed the irony. Being at the center of the drama, scheming, confronting, and battling for what they felt was theirs, had dominated their lives for years. Brooke and Taylor were now merely bystanders, their customary impact negated by a stroke of luck. While the fashion show went on without incident, Ridge mingled with investors, and their kids stole the show. The show didn't appear to notice the gap left by their typical outbursts, which included whispered jabs in the front row and well-timed entrances. As time went on, they were forced to face an uncomfortable reality for the first time: perhaps they weren't as essential as they had always thought. It was first expressed by Taylor, who was always the psychiatrist. Her tone was more contemplative than accusing as she pondered, "It's strange, isn't it?" Brooke followed her eyes to the screen, where the audience exploded in applause for a bold new design that she had nothing to do with. "All these years, we've acted like the universe would stop if we weren't there to steer it. But look, everything's fine. Better than fine, even." Something strange flickered. Doubt? Insecurity went over her face before she covered it up with a rehearsed smile. Although her remarks lacked their typical intensity, she responded, "Well, it's not as if they're doing it without force or influence." The more they observed, the more the ridiculousness of their conflict weighed on them. Two of Los Angeles's most influential ladies were relegated to spectators while their alleged competitors prospered. Somehow, Sheila Carter, of all people, managed to get a front-row seat and was enjoying the attention that was rightfully theirs. Even Hope, Brooke's daughter, appeared to be thriving without her mother's supervision, and her partnership with Steffi went smoothly. For the first time in years, the resentment between Brooke and Taylor felt nearly insignificant, and the realization was sobering. The dynamic between them had changed by the time the lockdown was removed and the doors were eventually opened, not into friendship, but rather into something like respect for one another. The typical tension was still present as they returned to the bustle of the post-show reception, but it was less intense because they both understood that the world wasn't about their fights. Never knowing that they had just gone through an existential crisis, Ridge cheerfully said, "There you two are. You missed quite a show," greeting them. Taylor and Brooke exchanged a look that, for once, was one of tired amusement rather than hate. They found themselves reverting to their typical roles as the evening went on, but something had changed. Then there would be a flash of awareness, a whispered acknowledgement of that odd, forced moment of clarity, the next time they collided, which they would, since old habits died hard. With or without them, the Forrester machine would continue to run. And perhaps, just possibly, that was okay. Front and center on The Bold and the Beautiful, three crucial players we need. Fans are demanding the return of three dynamic characters who could breathe new life into the show with new drama, emotional depth, and long-overdue confrontations. The Bold and the Beautiful undoubtedly thrives on its core families, the Forresters, Logans, and Spencers, but storylines are rehashing the same romantic triangles, business rivalries, and Sheila Carter's latest schemes. Not only do we need to see these faces again for nostalgic reasons, but their unresolved pasts and unrealized potential have the power to completely upend Los Angeles. Above all, Dr. Bridget Forrester, Brooke and Eric's intelligent, kind, and always ignored middle child, needs to regain her position in the Forrester family. The dynamic of the family has been severely disrupted by Bridget's absence, especially in light of her strained relationships with Ridge and her mother. Do you recall how Bridget's discovery of Brooke's liaison with her own stepfather, Deacon Sharp, rocked the world? Or the heartbreaking betrayal when Brooke later had an affair with Nick Marone, Bridget's husband? Bridget was the center of the Forrester family because of her quiet strength and moral integrity, and her return might make Brooke face the consequences of her decisions. Imagine Bridget returning to the group as a strong CEO or medical pioneer, arguing with Steffi over the company's course, or even arguing with Taylor about old grievances. Even better, what if she came back with a startling secret, a kid, a love that she had lost, or a grudge against the people who had harmed her? A show that is frequently dominated by snap judgments would benefit from Bridget's knowledge and emotional depth, and her participation may help close the generational gap between the current Forrester administration and Eric's legacy. Next up is Rick Forrester, the feisty, aspirational son who never quite received the recognition he was due. After a sour power battle with Ridge, Rick was fired from Forrester Creations in his final significant plot point, however his departure left unresolved issues. Some of the most compelling parts of the show were Rick's turbulent relationships, from his fiery marriage to Maya to his competition with Ridge over the business. His comeback might spark a corporate conflict unlike anything we've seen in a long time. Imagine Rick returning to Los Angeles with a brand new fashion company, stealing Forrester customers, and revealing Ridge's weaknesses as a leader. Or what if he got back together with a former romantic partner like Caroline, or even rekindled his anger with Brooke because of her preference for Ridge? Rick is the ideal antagonist turned protagonist because to his unique combination of charm, ruthlessness, and fragility, his presence would compel the Forresters to face their dysfunctional power dynamics head-on. Phoebe Forrester, the twin sister Steffi has been missing for more than 10 years, might make the most significant comeback. Although Phoebe passed away tragically in a vehicle accident, back from the death revelations are a long-standing custom in soap opera culture. What if Phoebe didn't pass away? What if she was surreptitiously saved, kept hidden by some evil scheme, and has spent the years living under a false identity? The entire show would be rocked by her resurrection. The high-stakes drama that B&B was designed for includes Steffi's emotional collapse, Taylor's remorse for failing to protect her daughter, and Ridge's desperate attempt to make apologies. More convincing still? What would happen if Phoebe came back with no recollection of her past and fell in love with someone like Finn or even Thomas, unintentionally shattering the very family she had previously been a part of? The storytelling potential is enormous, and the psychological and emotional effects would be incalculable. Beyond simply being well-known figures, Bridget, Rick, and Phoebe represent the missed chances, hidden secrets, and emotional closures that The Bold and the Beautiful has been lacking. Their comebacks might rebalance the plot of the program, providing us with eagerly anticipated conflicts, unexpected alliances, and the kind of character-driven drama that initially established B&B as a dominant force. Although the canvas is packed, it's time to clear some space. Return them, and then let the fireworks start. Nothing could have prepared the Forrester mansion for the tempest that struck when Brooke Logan disappeared without a trace, even if it had seen its fair share of scandals. She was drinking champagne with Ridge at Il Giardino one minute, talking about their most recent reunion effort, and then she was gone, her phone on the table, her clutch on the chair, as though she had just vanished into the night in Los Angeles. Ridge initially thought she had moved away, possibly to answer a phone or to calm down following one of their acrimonious confrontations about trust, Taylor, or the past that constantly seemed to resurface between them. But after an hour went by and she was nowhere to be seen, his annoyance gave way to worry and then to fear. The family was already in a downward spiral by the time the police were called, with each member's reactions revealing their most dangerous obsessions, their oldest wounds, and their darkest fears. The focal point of it all was Carter Walton, Brooke's lifelong confidant and, some speculated, her unanswered what-if. While others were in a panic, Carter became utterly focused, almost consumed, with locating her. His jaw clenched with an almost terrifying intensity as he read over security footage, brushed aside meetings at Forrester Creations, and disregarded calls from his new love interest. To no one in particular, he whispered, she wouldn't just leave, his normally composed manner shattered. Those closest to him, such as Katie, who had once been caught up in his orbit, understood the expression in his eyes. Friendship wasn't the only thing at stake. For years, Carter had suppressed his feelings for Brooke, telling himself that allegiance was sufficient. Now, however, the dam had cracked, and she might be gone forever. Even Ridge was startled by his devotion and yelled, "Back off, Carter. She's my wife." Carter did not recoil. He retorted, "Then act like it," the implicit charge lingering between them, "Where were you when she needed you?" The father of the family, Eric Forrester, was engaged in his own risky game at the same time. Eric's responses were measured, while the others fumbled. Too quiet. Too regulated. He reassured everyone that there was no need to involve the media, that Brooke was strong, and that she would show up. Behind closed doors, however, he called contacts that no one knew he had, men with no last names and hushed voices. Because Eric was aware that Brooke's departure wasn't coincidental, something the others weren't. It was revenge. He had taken shortcuts on an ethically dubious business with a silent partner in Dubai months prior. Eric had shrugged off the investor's threat to expose him. Now, though? He now pondered whether Brooke had been a casualty in a conflict she was unaware of. He couldn't confess without ruining the family's legacy, but his guilt was a live entity that was eating away at him. So he plotted in private, hoping to make this right before Ridge or Steffi found out. The family's divisions deepened as the days went by with no leads. Steffi, who was never one to be trusted easily, started to make fun of Carter's frantic energy and whispered to Finn that his actions were not normal. Hope, who was torn between fear for her mother and resentment over years of being taken advantage of, shocked everyone by saying, "Maybe she wanted to disappear, have any of you thought about that?" The comment hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Taylor was the first to say what no one else would, despite her complex relationship with Brooke, "This isn't like her. Someone took her. And if we don't act fast, we might never get her back." The case then broke when Ridge received a fuzzy snapshot via text message from an unidentified number. Brooke in the backseat of a moving automobile, confused but alive. The message? Ridge's blood raced cold when he said, "You should have honored the deal, Forrester." The color left Eric's face. What about Carter? Carter had already left the house with his keys, prepared to destroy the city in order to locate her. The truth was on the way. Nothing would ever be the same once it did.